From hate to love. A family secret changes everything. A rich, cold CEO. A homeless girl beaten down by life. Two people from two different worlds. But fate brought them together in an unexpected way. When Michael Harrington, a powerful businessman, accidentally helping Harper Evans, he did not know that she was the victim of the sins of his family's past. The girl had a good life, until his father, cruel man, destroy everything. But is the truth enough to tear them apart? Or can love overcome even the deepest wounds? Willow Creek was as peaceful as ever, but that peace was reserved for the lucky few. In the wealthy part of the hill, grand mansions stood tall. The streets were clean and tree-lined, and warm yellow lights shone through the windows. In contrast, the poorer part of the hill was plunged into darkness, where narrow alleys were littered with trash, and homeless people huddled under cardboard to keep out the bitter cold. Michael Harrington belonged to that hilltop world. At 32, he was one of the most successful businessmen in town, CEO of Harrington Properties, a real estate conglomerate that owned luxury hotels from the East Coast to the West Coast. People looked at him with a mixture of admiration and envy. A man who was rich, powerful, and elegant, but also cold and unpredictable. He could negotiate multi-million-dollar deals in an afternoon, but he had never really connected with anyone outside of work. To Michael, there were only two types of people in the world, the strong and the weak, and he was always on top. Harper Evans, 24 years old, used to be a girl full of ambition. As a student, she thought she would have a bright future, a good job, a small, beautiful apartment in the city center. But fate was not kind to her. A financial scam destroyed her family. Her father lost everything. Her mother collapsed and died of depression. Harper went from a girl with a future to a homeless person in just a few months. With no one to rely on, no money to continue studying, she was pushed out onto the streets, struggling every day to survive. Now the town of Willow Creek was drenched in cold rain. Heavy raindrops pelted the sidewalks, creating puddles that glistened under the yellow streetlights. Harper sat huddled on the corner, her back against an old brick wall. Her long brown hair was matted with rainwater, and her frayed coat was no match for the chill that was creeping into her flesh. She had not eaten for 2 days. Her stomach was churning, her head was spinning. But what was more terrifying than hunger was despair. She was used to people passing by without paying any attention, used to the looks of pity or contempt directed her way. She wondered, if she disappeared, would anyone notice? Meanwhile, Michael drove slowly down the deserted street, his shiny black Bentley reflecting the streetlights. He had no reason to pass through this area, because it wasn't on any of his usual routes. But tonight, something made him turn onto this street, as if an invisible force was guiding him here. And then he saw her, a young woman, huddled on the sidewalk, eyes closed as if trying to escape reality. Michael had seen countless homeless people in his life, but there was something about her that he couldn't take his eyes off. Maybe it was the way she didn't reach out to ask for money. Maybe it was the tired yet proud look on her face. For some reason, he stopped the car. Stepping out of the warm car, he pulled his coat back against the cold rain, then approached her. When he stood before her, Harper looked up. Her amber eyes held a wary glint. Michael reached into his wallet, pulled out a $100 bill, then bent down and held it out to her. "Here, take it." His voice was low but firm. Harper stared at the bill, then back at the man's face. He was too clean, too classy to belong here. Someone like him would never understand her life. She shook her head. "I don't need money." Her voice was weak, but firm. Michael frowned. Harper took a shaky breath, her eyes never leaving him. "I just want a decent meal, not money." Michael stopped. In all his life, he had never seen a homeless person refuse money, especially when they were hungry and cold like this. But this girl was different. She didn't want charity. She wanted something simpler than genuine kindness. He looked into her eyes, and for the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him. A question crossed his mind. What can I do for her? And so, On that cold, rainy night, Michael Harrington, the man who always kept his distance from the world, decided to do something that even he himself did not understand. He held out his hand. "Then come with me. I'll buy you a meal." Harper looked at him, hesitant. She didn't know if she could trust this man, but she knew one thing. Her hunger had reached its limit, and most of all, deep in his cold blue eyes, there was something that made her believe that he was not a bad person. After a few tense seconds, Harper reached out and placed her hand in his. And that's how it all began. Michael's Bentley sped through the cold night, leaving puddles glistening on the rough roads of Willow Creek. Harper sat in the passenger seat, her hands clutching the hem of her old coat. She still didn't quite trust this stranger. Though his eyes didn't seem dangerous, her experience on the streets had taught her one thing: no one does anything for free. Harper turned to look at the man beside her. Under the pale yellow light of the dashboard, she could see his face clearly. Sharp features, neat black hair, expensive suit that was pressed as if the wind and rain had not affected him. Everything about him exuded power and coldness. Why would someone like him stop for her? Michael stopped the car in front of a small restaurant on the corner. Maggie's Diner. It was a warm, homey place with yellow lights streaming in through the glass windows. It wasn't the upscale restaurant he usually frequented, but it had a friendly atmosphere and a menu rich enough to satisfy a hungry stomach. He got out of the car and opened the door for Harper. She hesitated for a second, but finally stepped out, her hands still clutching the hem of her dress, as if afraid someone would snatch it away. Inside, the restaurant was empty, with only an elderly lady standing behind the counter, smiling and welcoming. "Good evening, Michael. It's been a long time since you've stopped by." Harper was startled. She didn't think someone like him would be familiar with places like this. Michael nodded slightly, then pulled out a chair for Harper. "Just order, whatever you want." She bit her lip, scanning the menu. There were so many delicious dishes she hadn't touched in years. Harper hesitated, then sighed. "A hamburger and hot soup." Michael nodded, ordered another cup of hot tea for her, then turned to order black coffee for himself. At first, Harper focused only on the steaming bowl of soup in front of her. She felt a little embarrassed eating in front of Michael, but her hunger overcame her pride. She ate each spoonful of soup slowly, as if she wanted to prolong this moment as long as possible. Michael watched her silently. There was a strange satisfaction in watching her begin to relax, as if even a simple meal could soothe her wounds. "Tell me about yourself," he said, his voice low but not forceful. Harper put down her spoon and looked up at him. "Do you really want to know?" Michael nodded. Harper sighed softly. It had been a long time since she'd had a serious conversation with anyone, but there was something in Michael's eyes that made her feel safe. "I was a college student," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "I studied economics, dreaming of one day starting my own company. But then, it all fell apart." She clenched her hands, her eyes distant, as if looking back to a sad past. "My father worked for an investment firm. He was an honest, hard-working man. But one day, he found out he had been scammed." Harper chuckled, but there was no joy in it. "A wealthy businessman took advantage of a legal loophole to seize the company, wiping out all of our family's assets. We went from being a middle-class family to being broke in a matter of weeks." Michael was silent. A feeling of unease began to rise in his heart. "My mother couldn't take the shock," Harper continued, her voice breaking. "She took her own life. And my father, he disappeared after that. I was left alone, homeless, with no family." Michael felt his chest tighten, not because of the sad story. "I have heard too many tragedies in the business world. It is because—" "Who is he?" he asked, even though he already knew the answer. Harper clenched her hands, her nails digging into her flesh. "Richard Harrington." At that moment, time seemed to stop. Michael couldn't hide the shock on his face. The name was like a knife stabbing straight into his chest. Richard Harrington was his father. Harper ignored Michael's reaction. She was too absorbed in her own emotions. He's a devil in disguise. He not only took my father's company, but also took my mother's life. She gritted her teeth. If I had one wish, I would wish I could look him in the face and ask, why? Why was he so cruel? Michael took a deep breath, trying to control the emotions that were bursting inside him. He had always known his father was a ruthless businessman, but he had never really thought about the consequences of his decisions. Now the consequences are sitting right in front of him. What should I do? Should he tell the truth? That he was the son of Richard Harrington, the man she hated most in the world? But if he did, Harper would never forgive him. He felt more torn than ever. For a moment, he thought about leaving, cutting off contact with her before things went too far. But then, he looked into her eyes filled with pain, but also strangely strong. For the first time in his life, Michael didn't know what to do. And that's what scared him the most. Michael couldn't stop thinking about Harper. Her story kept haunting his mind, and more than anything, he felt responsible for her. Not as Richard Harrington's son, but as a man. He knew that if he told the truth, Harper would never accept his help. She was too strong, too proud to accept kindness from the son of the person she hated the most. So Michael decided to help her in a way that she could not refuse. He arranged for Harper to get a job at the Silver Oak Hotel, one of his properties in Willow Creek. It was a small position as a housekeeper, but it was enough to give her a fresh start. Harper accepted the job with gratitude, but also some doubts. How did she get so lucky? But no matter what, she couldn't let this opportunity pass her by. The first few days at Silver Oak weren't easy. She'd never done manual labor before, but Harper didn't complain. She cleaned each room with incredible diligence. No one knew she was once a college student with a promising future. Michael watched her from afar, occasionally popping into the hotel to check on her. Every time he saw her, he felt a strange sense of relief. Harper was slowly finding herself again. She smiled more. There was no longer the skeptical look in her eyes, nor the tired look of someone who had lost all hope. But one thing that remained unchanged was the hatred in her eyes whenever someone mentioned Richard Harrington. One Saturday night, the hotel hosted a large charity dinner attended by the town's wealthy and influential. Harper had no intention of attending, but when the hotel manager asked her to stay and help, she couldn't refuse. The party was more extravagant than anything Harper had ever seen. Sparkling gowns, expensive suits, clinking champagne glasses, and frivolous conversation. She kept herself in a corner of the room, trying not to attract attention. But then, for a moment, her eyes stopped on a large painting hanging on the wall. That is a picture of Michael. And next to him was Richard Harrington. Harper felt her heart stop. She stepped closer, feeling the ground beneath her feet crumble. The picture couldn't have been clearer. Michael stood next to Richard Harrington, both of them smiling, as if they had no guilt in the world. Harper turned, searching for Michael. He was standing across the room, chatting with some other businessmen. In that moment, everything fell apart in her mind. The man who gave her her first meal after days of hunger. The man who gave her a job, an opportunity. Turns out to be the son of the man who destroyed her life. Harper felt betrayed all over again. She walked toward Michael, her eyes blazing with anger. "Who are you?" Her voice was so cold that it startled Michael. "Harper?" He looked at her confused. "What is it?" She laughed bitterly, pointing at the photo. "You think I'll never know? You think I'll never realize you're Richard Harrington's son?" Michael froze. He had always known this moment would come, but he hadn't expected it to come so soon. "Harper, let me explain." "No need," she interrupted, her eyes filled with anger. "You lied to me. Why are you helping me? Because you feel guilty? Because you want to atone for your father's sins?" "It's not like that." Michael stepped forward, but Harper backed away. "I'm helping you because I want to help. It has nothing to do with my father." "Don't pretend," she almost shouted. "You know what he did to my family. You know he killed my mother, and you're still silent. You're still with him, still living a rich life on the suffering of others." Michael could say nothing. Any excuse was meaningless. Harper clenched her fists. "I trusted you. I thought you were a good person." Her voice cracked. "But you're just another Harrington." And then she turned and walked away. Harper left the party in the cold rain. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stay here. She returned the hotel room key, refusing to accept any help from Michael. She would rather go back to living on the streets than accept favors from Richard Harrington's son. Michael stood there, watching her figure disappear into the night. For the first time in his life, he felt helpless. And most of all, he felt pain. Michael couldn't let Harper disappear from his life, not like this, not without a chance to explain. He spent the night driving around Willow Creek, searching for her in dark alleys and corners, where the homeless often took refuge. But she was gone. The next day, Michael goes to the Silver Oak Hotel, hoping that Harper might return. But the receptionist reports that she has returned her room key and resigned that night. Michael felt his heart heavy. This wasn't about atonement for his father's mistakes anymore. This was about Harper. He cared about her, he really wanted her to have a better life, and he couldn't let her give it all up for a past he didn't choose. Meanwhile, Harper huddles in a back alley on the east side of town. She's back on the streets, but this time things aren't the same. She was no longer a homeless girl with nothing to lose. She had a job, a home, a stable life, and she had Michael. No matter how hard she tried to deny it, the truth remained. Michael was nothing like his father. He had never done anything to hurt her. He had never used his power or money to manipulate her. He just wanted to help her. But how could she forget what his family had done to her? How could she love the son of the man she hated the most? She hugged her body tightly, as if trying to hold back the broken pieces of a heart that had been broken too many times. 2 days later, as Harper sat beside a cold brick wall, struggling to cope with her hunger, a figure appeared before her. Michael. He was panting, as if he had been running all over the place to find her. The rain was falling lightly, and in the dim light of the street lamp, Harper could see the desperation in his eyes. "Harper!" His voice cracked. "You can't keep running away like this." Harper turned away, not wanting to look at him. "I'm not hiding. This is my life." Michael knelt before her, his dark blue eyes boring into hers. "No, you don't. You don't belong here. You deserve better." She laughed bitterly. "You think I'd accept your help? Richard Harrington's son?" Michael clenched his hands, fighting back the pang in his heart. "Harper, I'm not him. I can't change what my father did, but I can choose to be someone else." She looked at him, her eyes full of hurt. "But you're still a Harrington. And I can't forget what happened." Michael swallowed. "I don't want you to forget. I'm not asking you to forgive my father. I'm just asking you, let me prove that I'm not like him." Harper shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "We come from different worlds, Michael. You're a wealthy businessman, and me, I'm homeless, a pariah." Michael took her hand, warm and steady. "No, you are Harper Evans, a strong, resilient girl who will never bow to fate. You are more than your past. You can rewrite your future." Harper looked deep into his eyes, where there was undeniable sincerity. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that they could be together, despite everything. But can love overcome the past? She doesn't know. And that scared her more than anything. Harper turned away again, walking through the cold night of Willow Creek. She wasn't sure where she was going, but her steps seemed to follow the dark alleys, where homeless people like her still live. Suddenly, she heard a faint scream. Harper quickened her pace, and as she turned into a small alley, she saw a sight that made her heart clench. A homeless boy, no more than 10 years old, was surrounded by 3 men. They were not vagrants like her, but people who lived off of exploiting others. Drug trafficking, protection racket, even human trafficking. Don't! I don't have any money, the boy cried, his eyes panicked. Harper didn't think. She rushed forward, blocking the boy's way. Let him go! One of the men smirked. Oh, look who it is. Another rat? Harper swallowed, but didn't back down. I won't let you hurt him. The leader chuckled and slapped her hard across the face. Harper staggered, but did not fall. Do you want to be a hero? They started to rush in. Harper closed her eyes, bracing herself for the pain. But it never came. Let her go! An authoritative voice rang out. Harper opened her eyes to see Michael standing there, his face filled with anger. Without waiting for a reaction from the thugs, he rushed forward and threw a powerful punch at the leader. The rest of the gang cursed, but Michael was unfazed. He pushed Harper behind him, protecting her with his entire body. It's not worth it. Be smart and leave, Michael hissed, his voice filled with murder. They looked at each other, then realized that it probably wasn't worth messing with someone like him. All right, I don't like to mess with rich people. The leader spat and turned away, dragging his gang with him. Harper looked at Michael, stunned. Michael, what are you doing here? He gasped, a cut on his cheek bleeding, but his eyes never left her. I found you. Harper looked at Michael, who had just rushed into danger to protect her, who had not hesitated to get injured just to make sure she was not harmed. This is not Richard Harrington. Michael wasn't the one who destroyed her family. He was a completely different person, one who had proven that he was willing to fight for her. And she realized something even more important. She had let the past bind her for too long. She couldn't keep hating a name, a family, a lineage. She couldn't keep denying happiness just because of a wound that wasn't caused by Michael. She had to let go. Harper gently placed her hand on Michael's cheek, feeling his wound. You're crazy, she whispered. Michael chuckled. I'm just crazy about you. Harper closed her eyes, then nodded slightly. I don't want to run away anymore. Michael held his breath. Are you sure? She opened her eyes, for the first time no defense, no hatred, only sincerity. Definitely. A few months later, Harper had a steady job in the management department of the Silver Oak Hotel. She is still the strong, resilient girl, but now she is no longer alone. Michael is still a wealthy CEO, but he has learned that love is not the way to atone for the past, but is willing to fight for the person you love, regardless of all obstacles. They are no longer a CEO and a homeless girl. They are simply Michael and Harper, two people finding each other amidst the wounds of the past. And this time, they won't let go. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you like this story, don't forget to like to support the channel and subscribe so you don't miss any stories.